Alright, so one thing that I think is not given enough airtime in this industry is attentional focus. Now, attentional focus is basically concentrating on the right things at the right time, or the correct cues in the correct moment, depending on the environment and what it offers. So, a number of years ago now, when I studied sports psychology, I stumbled across a guy called Nideffers, who came up with a theory on attentional styles, where he basically looked at the direction of attention and also the width of attention. These two categories are on their own individual continuum, and they dissect in the middle, but what I'm going to do is not look at each four independently, because, well, basically this will take forever for me to do it. I could talk about it for hours, but I'll just look at them both independently rather than together. And basically I think this is huge in this industry, for the simple reason that it addresses two of the most common arguments that you hear. Number one being, what is the difference between self-defense fighting and combat sports fighting? And number two is the argument for and against the telegraphing of strikes. Alright, so firstly, if I look at the width of attention, it's on a continuum of broad and narrow. Okay, so if we talk about broad attention, first of all, it's self-defense 101. It's situational awareness. It's taking in several stimuli at that given moment, scanning the environment, looking out for anything that may be a harm or a threat. We're taught, whilst we're in a fight, we should also be looking at if there's weapons around that we can pick up. Is there barriers we can hide behind? Does he have a friend? And all those things. That's basically broad attention. In my opinion, it's great in early intervention for self-defense. So by that I mean if I'm walking down the street and I see in the distance, oh yeah, there's a group of people there, maybe I'll go this way, or it's great in that. It's terrible in late intervention, so once the fight starts, in my opinion. Narrow focus is focusing on one or a few stimuli. So a good example of that's boxing, where someone squares off in front of you. You're basically focusing on their torso and their hands. It's the only stimulus you have to worry about. Every time you add another stimulus, so whether you add kicks, knees, elbows, it becomes slightly broader, and only slightly. Same with when you add in MMA rules of takedowns and various other things. Because your focus is pretty much on their torso and in your peripheral, you can pick up on those things quite easy. It doesn't really become a broad focus, it's still relatively narrow. Because of that reason, I think the more stimulus you add, the greater that the telegraphing of strikes does not matter. So to be successful in an actual fight or in fight, whether it be in a ring or in the street, you need to focus on that problem that's in front of you primarily. So by that I mean stopping those punches, whatever they are, coming through you. That's where your focus should be. A self-defense fighter needs to be able to go from that narrow focus to broad at the right moments. Whereas a ring fighter, all they need is narrow focus. They should not have broad focus. The first time I ever fought in front of a large crowd, I had broad focus. So I could hear comments from the crowd and things like that, and that should never happen and never happen again. And as you could tell, it probably wasn't my best performance. I should have had that narrow focus, and all that should have been blocked out. Whereas you can see how it could be a benefit in a self-defense context. So pretty much the two differ, combat sports and self-defense, on the attentional focus. Okay, really different. One other thing where this comes into play is argument number two about the telegraphing of strikes. In a ring context, in a sporting context, it matters far greater than it does in a self-defense context where that is broader. So if it's just a boxing context, it is really important to ensure that your hands aren't giving away your intentions too much. Whereas in a self-defense setting, in my opinion, it doesn't matter that much at all. People who are in that broad focus will not pick up on that slight movement, and so this matters less. I would much rather the trade-off of throwing my money shot as opposed to a non-telegraphic jab in a self-defense setting for a number of reasons.